Welcome everybody to another episode of the Gold Silver Bitcoin Show, brought to you by the GoldSilverBitcoin.com store. We're more than honored today to be sitting down with Ali from Tahinis. He's a co-founder there. Thank you so much, Ali, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Justin. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm super excited about this.
Awesome. So how is it running a restaurant in Canada in 2022?
Yeah, it's definitely a roller coaster these days to run a restaurant. The laws and the rules keep changing all the time, and the costs keep going up all the time. Our margins are always chaotic. We don't know what it's gonna be next month, and we have to continually adapt with rising prices, rising cost, rising labor, shortage of labor, opening new restaurants, finding new franchisees, and so on. So yeah, it's a challenge, but we're doing it. You know, we're not making excuses, and that's what we got to do.
How long has Tahinis been accepting Bitcoin?
So good question. We actually don't accept Bitcoin. What we do is we run the business on a Bitcoin standard, which means we operate in dollars, Canadian dollars, 100%. We take our revenue, pay our expenses, pay our employees, pay our rents, our food costs, and then the profit that's left, that's what we take and we sweep it into Bitcoin. And so our treasury is basically all Bitcoin. We keep a little working capital for a few months just to handle short-term expenses, and then we just have a Bitcoin treasury.
How does that make running a business different than when you're keeping all of your profits, for instance, either in as executive payouts or in the treasury where it's liquid?
Yeah, so I mean, we have a certain amount that goes out to the executive team, and then after that we still have leftover cash in the company, right? Because we're structured as a corporation, so we don't take it all out. The company has its own treasury, and and I would tell people, because we were in that spot before where, like, most of the time as a small business, you're taking out all the money as the executive team or as the owner of the business. So you can still operate like on a Bitcoin standard from that level. Just sweep your personal treasury into Bitcoin. And when the business grows, you'll realize that it's not a wise decision to take all the money out, because it's a taxable event when you pay yourself more than a certain amount. So it's wise to have a treasury inside the corporation, and at that time, that's what you use to you can transfer or sweep it into Bitcoin or other forms of assets.
So I see here on your Twitter at the Real Tahinis that you spoke to the House of Commons Finance Committee and proposed that Canada should make Bitcoin legal tender. You also suggested that Canada should buy 10 billion worth of Bitcoin to strengthen Canada's balance sheet. How did that happen?
Yeah, so that was quite the experience. I got invited to speak to the committee by a member of parliament named Pierre Poilievre. And I decided to propose to them the idea of embracing Bitcoin. And I thought, to be honest, I was a little ambitious when I asked them to buy $10 billion of Bitcoin. But then, other members came out and they were suggesting, like, for the government to spend $10 billion per year to fight climate change, right? What is climate change? It's anybody's guess. It's such a wide term. It could be used for anything. So when I heard that, I didn't feel it was too ambitious anymore. In fact, I felt like it was responsible for the country to do this. And it's I didn't get a lot of responses or follow-up questions except from Pierre himself, and so basically not a lot of interest within Parliament in this matter. But at least I did something, and I spoke out, and 5 years down the road, we'll see if they should have listened to me or not.
What did Pierre ask? Pierre Poilievre? I don't know how to say that.
Poilievre.
What did Pierre ask?
He basically asked me how did we deal with inflation? What was it like after the pandemic? I told him about all the rising costs that we had to face, and how we realized early on that there was so much money going around, and it was bound to cause inflation, and we simply just acted on it by embracing a hard money system, a new hard money system called Bitcoin. And we did that, and it did protect our treasury from inflation. It worked like a charm. And yeah, that's basically what we told him and other members of parliament. And yeah, that was it.
How did you get to be in that position to ask Parliament that question?
Which question?
Or rather to suggest that Parliament purchase Bitcoin?
Yeah, I mean, like, we can see the balance sheet of Canada. This is like public information. We spent over 500 billion, like almost $500 billion since the pandemic started, and that basically put us in debt that neither us or our grandchildren will be able to pay off. So, having said that, I simply just wanted to propose a balance sheet solution that will help. It won't solve or won't fix everything, but it will certainly help. Canada doesn't have any hard assets anymore. They sold all of their gold back in 2016, and it was just me looking out for my country, pretty much.
So it's like public information that Canada just sold all of its gold.
Yeah.
Because here in the US, we have Fort Knox, but I don't believe it's been audited in decades. So we are told that there's X amount in there, but that's numbers not been audited. So we apparently have some gold left over down here in the South in the US, but it's just open there that you just have none.
Yeah. They sold all of it in 2016.
And that's interesting because that's such recent history.
Yeah.
So do you have any comments on Canada selling all its gold?
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess they felt like they didn't need it when they can just print more fiat. And it's an unfortunate decision that you sell your assets to add more liabilities. If you were a household, if you were a business, you would have been bankrupt and on the streets by now if you made those same type of decisions. But with a country, they can just print more money. So eventually that's going to catch up. And it's going to catch up, like the way I see it playing out is just a gradual depreciation of the dollar, the Canadian dollar and the US dollar on a long period of time against everything else, against houses, against oil, against your grocery bills, against everything. And that's where you need to have a hard asset, because the scarcer the asset, the more it will protect you from this monetary inflation environment that we're in. So for us, we scoured the world, and we realized that Bitcoin is the scarcest asset out there, and it's digital, which is native to our modern digital economy. And we think this is the solution that's gonna move us forward, and it's gonna act. It's a parallel system that goes along with our old system, and it can be built on top of it, integrated with it, and it can, act as an off ramp for people to protect themselves in this current environment.
Nations across the globe are purchasing gold right now. And so while if there's something par for the course about a country saying that we have gold, but you can't see it, it's kind of almost out of like fiction that a country just sells all of its gold and says, the printing seems to be going, it works, right? Hey, we can just print this stuff up and people take it, whatever. We don't need this gold lying around, even from like a game theory perspective with other nations purchasing it. I swear it's like more like fiction than what should be reality. But with that said, I guess, I'm curious about like how you got interested in Bitcoin and these financial topics, and then like your journey to Bitcoin too. But I want to talk a lot about food also, though. We'll get to that later, though.
Yeah, absolutely. So I heard about Bitcoin, I think it was back in 2016 or 2017, in that period. And I immediately dismissed it. I thought it was a Ponzi scheme, because when you look at it at first, you think it's a Ponzi scheme without studying it closely. And I basically dismissed it and moved on with my life. I'm personally an investor for years. Past decade, I've been an investor in equities and stocks, and I used to do stock analysis and invest in value investing and the Warren Buffett style of investing. And until I hit until we hit the year 2020, and luckily I was mostly, like, personally, I was mostly in cash at that point. I was like 75% cash. And when it happened, and then I saw the response from the Fed by printing, like, it started off like 2.5 trillion, then another 3 trillion, then it was just an insane amount of government printing as a response. I started looking really, really hard on what to do. I didn't, I thought equities was a good protection, but I didn't think that it would protect us in this environment, because companies are valued based on the cash they bring in, and if the cash they bring in keeps losing value, then the companies are going to be worth less. So I stumbled upon Bitcoin, and I stumbled upon an article by a man named Robert Breedlove. And the article's name was "The Number Zero and Bitcoin." So I read that article, and that's when it like clicked for me. So I was like, this is interesting. So I took a position, then I started learning more. I bought the Bitcoin Standard by Saifedean Ammous, amazing book. Devoured it in 3 days, bought more Bitcoin. Read The Internet of Money by Andreas Antonopoulos, The Price of Tomorrow by Jeff Booth. And I just kept, the more I learned, the more I bought for myself. And the more it grew from a fun investment to the best investment to, okay, I got to put everything into this. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity. To, this is a way of life, where I felt like I needed to incorporate it into my business, into my kids' education plans, like education funds, to just life in general, to, like, bringing my family along and everything, So that's how I came about it. So it's just learning.
What does Bitcoin and the Bitcoin standard mean to you in general for not only yourself and your family, but for humanity?
Well, for me and my family, it's hope. It's hope for my family that I can feel that the work that I put in throughout my life is going to give the family the life that I want for them. Because I know that work is not going to get debased. And what's happening right now, Justin, is um, it's not just the money is getting debased, it's people's effort and time is getting debased. And when you realize that, you can think to yourself or look to someone old in your family and say, man, my father worked 40 years of his life or 30 years, whatever it is. And then in 2 years, they just added 30% more to the money supply. So they effectively stole a third of his life in 2 years. A third of your effort, everything, all those years that you put in grinding day in and day out, third of that just gone. So it's unfair, and we think it's theft, to be quite frank. And Bitcoin is the antidote to that because it's fixed. It's the if you think about it from a first principles view, your time is fixed. So you should be trading your time for a money that is also fixed. And that's a key element. But there's also technology that adds into it, which makes it even better. But this is a problem that we're all facing. So for us as a family, Bitcoin is hope. And sorry, what was the second part of your question?
Well, really, you did cover a lot of it in the as you're answering, but it was what's like Bitcoin mean for humanity?
Yeah, I guess I did. Yeah, Bitcoin is hope for humanity, Justin. We deserve to earn the fruits of our labor and not have it debased. And Bitcoin is just an economic instrument to help us solve that. And we've never had something like that in history where it's absolutely fixed. Um, and yeah, that's what I think about it for humanity. I think it's going to change the world.
I spoke with Sean Colkin at Bitcoin 21, like for literally 45 seconds, because I filmed it for a video. I know that's how I know how long it was. And I asked him, what does that same question, Bitcoin, mean for the future of humanity? And he literally said that it was Bitcoin is hope. That's the title of the video that I posted. Yeah. So there's a lot of people out there who think that. And Ali, when you're explaining about the money printing and the devaluation of the currency and what that means for people, and we could go on about that. I could tell you're angry. Makes you angry about that time was stolen from your father, huh?
Absolutely. Like I looked at it exactly in that same context with my own father. My father is one of the hardest working men I know in my life, and he worked from 8 a.m. till 11 p.m. for years. And to know that this can happen to him in a matter of 2 years, it's just not right, and it's happening under the nose of everyone, and nobody's really talking about it. So it does frustrate me. Um, and luckily, I got my father into Bitcoin, and I got him in early, and yeah, it did protect him like it did protect us, right? So I'm not as angry anymore because I felt like I did right by my family, but I'm still angry that this is being done to millions of people around the world. In fact, billions. Everyone's getting affected by this. The inflation of the U.S. dollar is causing other countries to inflate at a faster pace. And you find countries that are just crumbling right now, like Lebanon or Turkey or Argentina or Venezuela or Zimbabwe or Afghanistan or wherever. Like every continent, you're going to find something. So this needs to be addressed. This needs a solution. We need to be more proactive than pessimistic. So we need to provide solutions that is suitable for you know person living in Zimbabwe earning $1 a day. Um, that person can't go buy a share of Apple stock at the end of the month, right? Um, he literally can't. There's no way he can do that. But he can buy Bitcoin, right? Uh, the on ramps and the hurdles are a little bit harder in these third world countries, but it is possible. And we have to be proactive in these conversations and offer a solution instead of just beating down on the problem.
I see it happening. When I went to Bitcoin 21, I like bring this conference up all the time on this show, but it was a really interesting experience after the world had been locked down, as the IMF dubbed it, the Great Lockdown. 12,000 people, as so according to the reports, attended a massive conference in Florida and discussed all of the problems you've mentioned today and had a solution. Also had some very well-known leaders in the US, like Ron Paul, kind of set the tone, but then everyone was on the same page thereafter, kind of talking about solutions and talking about what they view as the solution, and really addressing the problems head on. I spoke with Dave Collum, he's a professor of organic chemistry at Cornell, a very smart man. And he was discussing how Bitcoiners, he doesn't quite understand. It's really not for him. He's buying gold and silver, which I do think is also another option that people have, although there's it's completely different. They're even further apart than apples and oranges. And so he was saying that he prefers those commodities and that he views Bitcoiners as sort of the young generation, like storming the beaches of Normandy. And that Bitcoin is like financial offense or economic offense, even. And gold and silver might theoretically be, or any deflationary commodities as well, or assets. Some would argue NFTs are included therein. Are kind of financial defense or economic defense. But in all, I see a lot of hope. I see a lot of hope out there, quite frankly. And I suppose that, in order for there to be light, there needs to be darkness.
That's
first. Right. As kind of any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, like we're at a point of time where I don't know if you saw the meme where strong times create weak men create bad times create strong men, and the cycle goes around. This is actually very true throughout history, and I feel like we're at a point right now where it's the weak times are creating strong men, and the future I think is bright, and I think the people that are going to view the world from first principles and take the effective action to allocate to hard assets are going to be the decision makers of the future. And that's honestly what we need right now. But the world is changing. We're at like this, like, Ray Dalio calls it the 80-year debt cycle, or you can, view it in the fourth turning. There's also like 80-year cycle where, the weak man creates, and like this whole cycle. It's a long cycle, but it's coming to, through a phase shift right now. And this phase shift is not going to happen over a day or a year or two. It might take like 5 to 10 years, but it's happening. And you need to step back. This is very important, I think. I think you need to step back from mainstream media and just educate yourself and try to come to a conclusion from what you've learned, not what the media says. Because the media will put out things like, inflation is hitting all-time high. Here's how you should think about it. And they're literally telling you how you should think about it on the title. And that's what you have to not do in order to, go through what we're going through right now. Thinking for yourself and education is the most important thing that you can do. I'd say it's more important than actually buying Bitcoin itself, or buying hard assets. You have to educate yourself, because you could just go buy Bitcoin, but like, if the market goes down like we are right now, you can get shaken out because you just don't have the education and the knowledge and the conviction to hold through it. So yeah, go out there and learn like an animal. Just be a sponge, absorb everything you can, be open-minded to everything, to all types of assets, and try to come to a conclusion by yourself.
So many different like thoughts come to mind on this last topic. So I've been thinking a lot about like different philosophies. And so for instance, some certain people will argue that like all wealth is created via labor. So people who labor visibly and are doing the hard work, whether that be serving tables or, building businesses, or rather like building, doing construction, or any sort of labor, like laying plumbing, fixing plumbing, etc., are the ones who are creating all wealth. These are the ones creating all the wealth. But sort of your ideas around knowledge had me thinking about how much like ideas also and thinking create value. So, you might look idle, but just having ideas and thinking for yourself, and recognizing that the media historically in industrial societies has served propaganda purposes. And there's really nothing to suggest that today is any different. Also creates perhaps even more wealth than some of the kind of visible tasks that certain people argue is where all the value lies, and then therefore where wealth should be, all the wealth should lie. So I think that certain people undervalue, the power of thinking for yourself. And so any other comments on sort of that? And then also I'm trying to think, because you covered so much stuff there, and let's just leave it with that. Any further comments?
Well, I can easily say that the best decision I've made over the past few years was not trusting media, mainstream media especially. This just allows you to take an overhead view of things, because like you said, there's evidence in history that media is being used as a tool to change public opinion. And I saw that firsthand back in my home country, Egypt. We went through a revolution. We overthrew the president. We elected a president, and then media the media was used alongside the army to change public opinion and basically do a coup to have the army take over the country. Um, so I know it firsthand. I know how it can be used, and yeah, like you need to learn critical thinking, and that's all the comments I have on that.
So you were in Egypt during a color revolution, essentially.
Yeah, well, back in 2011, it was the Arab Spring, and the whole Middle East went in revolt against um, dictator presidents that were ruling for 30 or 40 years. And Egypt was one of the leaders of the Arab Spring. And I was out on the streets literally in January of 2011 and protesting with millions and millions of other Egyptians. And I got to, we faced riot police. I got hit with tear gas. I got surrounded by riot police. I had to hide from them, and we eventually overpowered the government basically, and we made the president at the time, Mubarak, made him step down. So yeah, it was a great learning experience for me. It showed me what the power of the people can do. It showed me what a movement can do, and what the Bitcoin community is doing and what Bitcoiners are doing right now is very similar, but it's more effective, and it's working. It's working.
So you were on the ground in Egypt during the Arab Spring.
Yeah.
What was that like on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, it's crazy. Like I said, the craziest day was when we got hit with tear gas and faced riot police. The riot police, it was like along the main street of Alexandria, and we were all marching, and then the riot police kind of closed us in. Like they were in front of us, and the protesters were just marching, and then it was me and my brother at the time, and we were just super excited and happy and patriotic, and got hit with tear gas, and we're like, no problem. But everybody's putting like Coke on their face and stuff like that. They're like, yeah, this is the antidote. And then all of a sudden, the riot police cut us off from the other side, and we were like boxed in. And so we didn't want to be part of any aggressive violence. So we basically hid in a building, and then we hid there for like 30 minutes or 40 minutes or so, and then we came out only to find that the protesters beat the riot police and were walking around with the riot gear. Yeah, it was quite the experience.
And then you decided to move to Canada with your family, or
yeah, exactly. The same year, we just said, this is great, but I don't think we have a bright future here, and we're Canadian citizens originally. We just grew up in Egypt, so we just packed our stuff and moved to Canada.
So how's it been here? Like kind of watching it change over the last 10 years, North America, Canada, the US.
I grew to love Canada more than my home country. Canada basically gave us everything. We built our careers here. We built our families here. Um, and I feel, you know, that almost like I have a duty to tell Canadians and Canada about this economic tool that is Bitcoin, and that's why I came out and talked to member of Parliament and the House of Commons Finance Committee. Um, I feel like I owe it to Canada to to say what I'm saying and evangelize Bitcoin. I think it's helpful for individuals, for companies, big and small, but mainly small. Like it benefits more the smaller companies because these are companies that are getting squeezed harder by inflation. So I'm just out here doing my thing, opening new restaurants, making good food, talking to people about Bitcoin, and just trying to live a normal life.
So what advice do you have for other businesses like you're doing at Tahinis uh, to run the business on a Bitcoin standard?
I'd say don't try to go down the Bitcoin as a payments method because one, Bitcoiners don't want to part with their Bitcoin. They don't want to spend it. It's a treasury asset. Two, there's not enough adoption that people are gonna, adopt this as a payments to pay for a shawarma or coffee or whatever it is. Three, the tax laws are built where whenever you spend Bitcoin, it's a taxable event. So it turns it into an accounting nightmare if you want to accept Bitcoin for payments, because every time you got to pay a vendor or pay rent or pay employee, you got to sell that Bitcoin. Then you got to calculate your capital gains on it and so on and so forth. So it's just an accounting nightmare. The better strategy, the easier strategy, is operate 100% in dollars. Forget about announcing the Bitcoin payments to try to get more customers in, and then just sweep your profits into Bitcoin. And it's easily done right now. There's lots of exchanges where you can have business accounts built or created on them, and you connect your corporate bank account with that exchange every month. You set you set a certain amount every month where you want to buy, and you just buy it, and it stays on. Keep it in cold storage, stays on the company's balance sheet, in your control, not anyone else's.
Beautiful thing. What else do people need to know about Tahinis Restaurants?
Not much. You can follow us on Twitter. We're at the Real Tahinis, um, and if you're interested in doing business with us, you can contact us on our website, tahinis.com. And if you want to try our food, just come down. We're going to be opening in a city near you. We're expanding as fast as we can right now. We will come to the States. We just don't know when. But we're trying to kind of like conquer Canada first, open a lot of locations here and then move to the States. So reach out to me. I run the Twitter account personally, and I love to talk to people. Sometimes I won't get to everyone, but I'll definitely make the time.
So you have a t-shirt here. It's Tahinis is better than gold. Well, I can see how that might be if you've got a business where you're expanding and growing, and it is a like property or asset that has a return and also creates wealth for other people. It creates jobs, et cetera. That's always a good feeling. And
Absolutely.
you're putting all that money into Bitcoin. So I'm curious, like, can you talk a little bit about it, like success in entrepreneurship and like the challenges you face, how you overcome them? You are doing very well, not only on Instagram and Twitter, but also particularly I see here on TikTok as well. And then expanding and growing. Can you talk to that?
I think the best thing you can do is to surround yourself with a team that know their abilities very well, and surround yourself with partners that can trust and have complementary skills to yours. Um, if they don't, then you go out and acquire new skills that will be complementary to them, and vice versa. Um, if you want to go uh, very far, you go together. If you want to go fast, you can go alone. I ever heard that saying? So, find a good team that is self-aware of themselves, and specialize and work together, and don't quit, and have a focus on what your goal is and what you want to do. There's a lot that can be done when you're focused on something and you spend day in and day out trying to achieve it. Everything is achievable. You just gotta dissect it, work it back, reverse engineer it, and just execute it. So I think that's my advice to all entrepreneurs. I'm not saying I'm like qualified to give advice on it, but that's what we're doing. Um, and hopefully this can be helpful to other people.
Can you speak a little bit more about like the challenges that you faced over particularly the last, like, I guess 2 years almost now? When, like, for instance, did Tahini's open?
Yeah, so we opened our first restaurant. We bought our existing restaurant back in 2012, right when we came to Canada. That's when we started in the restaurant industry. We had no prior experience, and we ran this restaurant. Me and my brother, for years. He was running the day shift, I was running the night shift, and we learned the business and the industry as we went along. And then we decided to open another location, and then it turned in a few years after that. We opened a third, and then we franchised the company and turned it into a franchise model. And then worked on that for a couple of years to get all the infrastructure right. We then went out to open 4, 5, 6 restaurants after that. And yeah, now we're at this phase where everything's set up, our base is set up, kind of like how the bamboo tree, works 5 years to set up its roots, and then in 6 months they kind of explode. Um, so building roots is definitely a good idea for any business. Um, Building a foundation, building systemized operating procedures, um, and learning how to delegate and work with a big team of people, and all this stuff is just like we learned as you go, um, and I think it's very beneficial for anyone out there.
So you bought an existing restaurant when you moved to Canada?
Yeah,
And is this just you and your brother or more members of your family?
yeah, just me and my brother.
Nice. So how did you go about buying like a bit pre-existing business? I know that there's a lot of due diligence that entails, et cetera. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, well, when we came here, we wanted a career, right? And we wanted to be our own bosses, and we started looking around for businesses to buy. And we knew that this restaurant in particular, it was like a downtown location. It was a good location, and it was a good, busy restaurant. And so we just jumped on it. um, it was a risk. It was a big risk because, a lot of it, all of it was on debt, and we kind of had to make this work, or we were out on the streets, kind of thing. So we did that, and then we rebranded that restaurant to Tahinis, and um, and that's where the Tahinis, the company, kind of started.
Nice. So can you speak about like, working with your brother? Obviously you two get along, you have overthrown governments together. Now you're starting a business. Can you speak to working with family? Because I think a lot of people, you know, there's a there's some unique challenges that come with that, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah, and that's where, like, it's good to have, uh, going back to that part where you need to complement each other. You need to have skills that are complementary to each other and not the same skills. And it's definitely challenging with family, but it's also very beneficial because you when you and your brother have the same passion, um, you can go very far with that. It depends on the family relationship also that you have, but I think family can be very beneficial because the bond is unbreakable, and then you kind of learn to accept things about one another that you normally wouldn't accept out of anybody else. So yeah, it's both ways. There's pros and cons to everything, right, in life. But I definitely think it's a pro, um, especially if you have a good relationship with your family.
So what's your read on like the trucker protests? Has that been affecting like your supply chains even further? Have you seen it kind of unfold in front of you where you are?
Yeah, well, I'm at London, Ontario. I'm very far away from Ottawa, but it has affected our supply chain, and it's making the costs go haywire of everything and random stuff like um, produce and stuff like that. Like some things will just jump in cost by like 60-70% in a week, and we just have to deal with that. But luckily, we built a company called Alex Food Service. That's like a logistics company. It's like a factory basically that sends the food out to all of our restaurants and to other restaurants as well. Um, so it's like a food distribution company basically, and yeah, it's helped us a lot because we have purchasing power with this company, and we can somewhat uh, get better prices and better costs of stuff. So, but we still feel the pain, and we recently just raised prices because our margins were just we couldn't handle it, and they were getting too squeezed to be sustainable. And hopefully, the truckers can do something. Hopefully, it'll work. We don't know yet, but we're with them. I think Canadian truckers are awesome, and they have my support.
Awesome. So you started the second business, the food distribution business, to complement Tahini's, I
Sure.
suppose. And then it also serves
Correct.
other restaurants, I guess.
Correct. Yeah.
Nice. So you got a pretty good like handle on kind of the food distribution front. I guess I get what is like, are you really worried that it could get quite bad? Or do you think this will blow over?
Uh, I don't know. I mean, it's best not to just live in fear of what's gonna happen, but just try to react to what's happening. Um, Especially with when we're talking about things that we're talking about, like um, blockades of highways and stuff like. We don't know how that's gonna affect prices or costs or um, but we think it's helpful overall. We'll react to it however we need to react with it, and we'll just focus on what we can control, right?
Makes sense to me. I think that Jeffrey Booth's book, The Price of Tomorrow, comes to mind, which I think is a book that focuses a lot on deflation.
100%. 100%. Jeff Booth's book is a must read for everyone out there. It really paints and gives a clear picture of what the future is going to look like. And you just have to read this book. I can't give this guy credit enough.
Awesome. We've had the honor of sitting down today with Ali, co-founder and current chief marketing officer of Tahinis. If you're a Bitcoiner and you're listening to this, you can find them on Twitter at the real Tahinis. They're also at tahinis.com, I believe. Thank you so much, Ali, for joining us today.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure and it was an honor to be on your show.
Pleasure's all mine. And thank you everyone for listening.